This assignment is research proposal, outline, and presentation. My name is Myra Casades, and this is for class SWK 555, Methods of Research in Social Work 1 for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Grand Canyon University the review of Professor Shanae Shaw. Today's date, November 26, 2015. The social problem that I chose is within the child welfare recidivism rates, how they tend to go up. Um, and one of the things that I found interesting in this was that it stated as many as one-third of children who reunify with, um, that are in the child welfare system um, re-enter care because of continued child maltreatment. And it was interesting to see that it is a high number of of those that are re-entering the system. The introduction for my it's based on the problem statement and background information. The social problem that is being addressed in this study is that there is social concern in the child welfare system. There is one-third of children who reunify from child welfare systems that re-enter because of the lack of change and continuance of child maltreatment. The child welfare is a social problem due to the systematic uses that have a direct effect on a vulnerable population like the underage. Permanent planning within the Child Protective Services continues to be the goal within the child welfare system, but the concept of permanency becomes complex as it is linked to a multitude of social, emotional, cultural, and legal factors that are evaluated to seek legal guardianship, adoption, and reunification with their families. The priority of child welfare is to have reunification, and that means that the child returns back to the biological family or the former caregiver from whom the child was removed. Within the child welfare reunification occurs once the protection of the child is safe. The caseworkers in child welfare will usually evaluate if the parents uh, have demonstrated to improve in the risks in which led to the removal, or the risk has been mitigated, and the child can return to their home and be safe, um, have safety and stability. Much research shows that families that come into contact with child protection services are burdened with many factors, such as generational family trauma, domestic violence, substance abuse, incarceration of the parent, of one parent, poverty, and mental health concerns. Due to families experiencing distress, it can be traumatic and um, insecurity producing detrimental outcomes for children and young people's social, emotional, and physical development across their lifespan. When the children are young in age, they will lack continuity of the relationship with their family and their cultural background, as they are not able to maintain a connection with their origins. As the years go by, they will enter young adulthood or in the adulthood area or adulthood time. It may lead to a conflict with identity development and determination, um, detaching from community and the sense of belonging to a family. Recidivism of child protection services after reunification has extensive financial and resourcing repercussions for the department, and it is its workers as kids are returning. That causes caseloads to increase for workers. Recidivism rates call for the need in transformation of child welfare to better support families and address the root causes of the social issues that led to the removal. The post reunification period is the time of readjustment as a family. It tends to get lost with time. The maximum amount of time that a child is away from their home or the reunification process is usually 18 months. And many things can go ahead and change with the bonding and relationships during that time. And especially if visitations are not continuously done through the process. Although that is one of the requirements for to be able to get their children back. So it's an adjustment for the family. Um, and there's a need to engage and reestablish a possibility of broken relationships, coping with the change, and navigating through the process of family functioning. And not all previous services are continued. If not all of the previous services are continued after the reunification, it can cause old behaviors of on the parents if there was any substance abuse, um, to come back, mental health issues that are not being treated, not compliant to medication, lack of employment, domestic violence. So these services are the ones that need to be given after post reunification to be able to provide good results in the reunification process. The research question is how can child welfare diminish the recidivism of future child protective services involvement and preserve reunified families? What is child welfare lacking to provide that is causing recidivism? That is the question. What is child welfare doing in order to be able to keep reunification intact, and no chances of reintegrating into the foster care system? The literature review that I have, I read three of them, and there's ample research that has been completed on child welfare, but mostly the after effect on children after being in foster care. The other research uses a different approach in measuring and the reintegration into foster care. And then so the ones that I'm going to be using are the different approaches in measuring and the reintegration into foster care, examining the follow-up periods and sample sizes in a removal, in a long term in children. And the three articles that captured my attention are Parents' Voice on Parental Engagement in Child Protective Services, Child Protective Services Reports After Reunification and Examination of the Risk of Being Re-reported to Child Protective Services, and after returning home from foster care, and lastly, the re-involvement after returning home. A systematic review of the factors associated with post-reunification child protective involvement. Starting off with the first one, Parents' Voice on Parental Engagement in Child Protective Services. Um, It's a study that it had the purpose to explore the experiences and perceptions of family engagement in child protective services. So it's during the time. The study used the Yat Yatmanoff self-reported client engagement scale, and the scale measured four dimensions of successful parental engagement. There were 75 parents that were participants, and the dimensions were family buy-in into the assessment. So being part of the child services practice, the receptivity to help when parents are in this stage in their life, they tend to be very defensive, and they're not receptive to help until they have an understanding of what is going to happen if they don't get it together and go ahead and reunify. Um, Another one was mistrust and working relationship. Being transparent as social workers with the parents is essential. There is no promises that can be made where, yes, you will get your kid. No, we have to be as transparent as possible because that will determine the factors of being realistic. There's times that not all um, decisions are based on the social workers. Sometimes there's other issues like courts, um, other factors. If they're not engaging in their drug testing, if they're not attending their classes, all of that is means for them not to be able to get their children back. And we need to be able to have that working relationship where they can go ahead and trust and build that rapport. The research questionnaire was used to collaborate, and the parents were working with the child protective workers and how they felt about the social worker services. The findings were that parents felt they were not engaged in the assessment of the child protection. Um, the highlights, the highlight was a distrust and were reluctant to accept the assistance and overall benefit from the knowledge of the child protective workers. There were difficulties in communication and collaboration. The parents stated that the categories were negatively identified as lack of objectivity, objectivity, judgmental attitudes, and arrogance on the social workers' part. The parents stated that they were denied their version of the story, and the social workers' attitude play a role as an obstacle in their participation. Um, and when we see this, it's social workers cannot be biased and have their own predicament of what actually happened because we know that the client is the expert in their situation, and we at least have to have a listening ear and uh, be able to understand and empathize um, what they are going through and understand their positions and not take our input in it. So leaving our bias out and self-analyzing ourselves. The next literature was Child Protective Service reports after reunification, an examination of the risks of being reported to Child Protective Services after returning home from foster care. This study focused on the re-reporting to Child Protective Services after the children are being removed and are reunified with their parents. This article explains that children go to foster care homes as a form of placement in someone else's care. This study is one of the first ones to use the nationwide link data to examine the risks of re-report. And this article says that out of all the children that exit the foster care system, 49% of those substantiated reports re-enter foster care. Uh, the number is pretty high, 49%. That is significant. That's half of the people that enter the system. The data was gathered through the longitudinal national linked data to examine the reoccurrence within 2,000 days, an observance period on 612,654 youth in foster care. And the findings were that children who have multiple allegation referrals before being removed into placement were in were at a higher risk once they returned home. The factors in this research is that parents are not changing their behaviors and are prone to continue the same behaviors. Um, as a social worker in children and family services, before getting an investigation referral, we do a analysis on the previous substantiated cases or unfunded cases as well. And there is history that shows of parents that have had multiple referrals in the past prior to actually their children being taken away. Um, the next article is the re-involvement after returning home. The systematic review of the factors associated with post-reunification child protection involvement in this third literature review focuses on following children who exited the out of the home care. The study had objectives to better understand the factors that involved the protection of the children and their families. The method that was used, it was a systematic search to identify peer-reviewed and great literature across 7 databases. These databases were able to provide information. There was 42 papers, and 38 of those were based on quantitative research and 4 were qualitative. The method used was a preferred reporting item for systematic review and meta-analysis to be included in the sample of young adults and children. They, in order to be in this study, they had to had experience statutory removal, placement with out-of-home care in a foster home, residential care, kinship care, been reunified, and had post-reunified period. The other sample included qualitative studies of families who achieved and maintained reunification for a period of time. Parents of children who had re-entered reunification and social workers who worked along with families who did not re um, who did not re-enter. In their study, they identified that child age was a significant factor with child protection re-involvement after reunification. This study confirmed that children under the age of 1 are more likely to re-enter due to older children being able to protect themselves. So it was a protective factor as they age. In the sample of the 4 qualitative researches, it shows that that older children were at risk to re-enter at the age of 10 to 15 years old due to being unable to adjust to their home and youth having mental health conditions and behavior challenges. Children with intellectual and physical disabilities were also mental health difficulties and behavioral issues were found to re-enter constantly back into the system. In gender, females were at a higher risk of both re-entry and substantiated reports versus males. During the young age, in this was not a variable, is the female start getting it wasn't during young age, it's not a concern. It happens as their age starts increasing, that they are a risk. The child's race ethnicity showed that children of races, ethnic groups other than Caucasians are to be in at an increased risk of reentry. Five studies found that African American children to be more likely to reenter. American, Hispanic, and Asian children are most likely to remain reunified. Um, so those were the three that I thought were interesting and applied to the research. Theoretical framework. I used to the ecological systems theory of Erie Bronfenbrenner. I just love that. His whole system, this whole way of thinking that human development through environmental layers is plays a role in everything, and it's a crucial understanding that social, cultural, and institutional contexts have an influence on people, family, and peers. And that was that his theory claimed that the impacts of social, cultural, and institutional contexts are influenced by those that surround us. And the systems were tiered, sorry, from the micro, which is the immediate connection. The meso are the interactions and relationships between microsystems and how they influence each other. The macro is a broader societal and cultural norms, social status, and policy ideologies. In social work, this model can be used to whom the child considers to be a strong support or who the child is close to based on which system they are placed in. In the parents, it can be used to visualize who their support network is and who they can reach out when they are in need of assistance or just words of encouragement, based on determining their their micro, meso, and macro levels in their life. And this is in child welfare social work perspective, of the micro, meso, and the macro. So in the micro, it's the children being removed and their parents um being affected. Both are being affected at the micro level. Um it is hard to have your children being removed out of your sight and it's also a social impact of, oh, that parent is not good enough to take care of their children. So it's just the way many different ways that it is being seen. The meso is a natural support services that have on outside of their micro level. For example, friends, extended family, church friends, other support groups that they attend to. Um, and then the macro is um, the policy framework that directs the child welfare department. So the collaborating agencies, I listed child welfare. It's it's one that works within, and then the legal, having to deal with court, the policies of the county, the policies of the state are also identified into the macro level. Mm, The mixed methods approach. Um, for this research, in order to be beneficial, it would have to be a mixed method research that has a combination of qualitative and quantitative approach. This methodology will allow us to gain an exact understanding in the complexity of how child welfare can diminish the recidivism of future child protective services involvement and preserve reunified families. With the mixed method research, it will allow us researchers to find quantitative methods through surveys and observations of trends and relationships, but we can also collaborate with the we can also corroborate with the qualitative data of interviews that explore the children and parents' experience through a longitudinal study. With this method in research, we will be able to find the need that the families have, and as researchers, be able to assist caseworkers with the knowledge they need to transmit to the families that are reunifying as to where to continue their services based on the experiences of the participants. So the hypothesis to test is child protective services and better social work services approach towards families will diminish the recidivism of future child protective services and improve outcomes of family reunifications. The independent variables, factors influencing the reunification, that could be the age, like we mentioned before, race, ethnicity, gender, parental readiness, mental health, stability, foster care history of reintegration, visitations, consistency during the time of foster care, being compliant to drug testing, incarceration, participation of services. And the dependent variables, of how it can be effective, the outcomes is success of reunification. It is a possibility, and not having to reintegrate into the child welfare system. The effectiveness of child welfare systems in providing strategies and the needs for additional support. Social workers need to implement effective reunification programs that will help the well-being of the children and their families. Um, these will be outcomes of depending on how they are variables of how they are able to succeed. And ultimately, reunification is the priority of the child welfare system. Permanent placement of that. Um, the data analysis for software to analyze the findings. I researched a couple of them, and the qualitative and quantitative approach, I found the Maxqda, which is Maxqda, um, and it was said to be one of the best qualitative and mixed method data analysis. The software offers literature review, mixed methods, content analysis, and interview analysis, questionnaire analysis, and focus group data analysis. The focus of the Maxta is to organize, analyze, visualize, and present. The mixed methods analysis through Maxta uses various tools to elevate both types of data study and of studying the data like interviews and transcription. The software organizes codes, finds patterns, um, and studies the data for numerous analysis possibilities. The software is user-friendly for beginners and pros. Um, other methods of controlling the data or keeping it in archived would be like Excel is a Microsoft program that can be very useful as well for um, formulating data. Um, for this study, um, we will use also a state automated system to be able to complete case management data, but also to be able to get data from the system and be able to obtain information on when children were removed from their families, what were the necessary steps that were taken to safety planning and case planning, in what cases the parents were participating, in what classes the parents were participating, analyzing their drug test and see and per, their drug test to get a percentage of clean and dirty tests and see the progress of levels of drugs and alcohol in their system and see if they're trying to stop using, depending on lab works. Offer services with drug counselors, inpatient and outpatient rehabilitations. Um, the percentage of visitations is also an important factor. Uh, we can go ahead and figure that one out through these methods. And then in having research interviews, um, like I lost myself. Children are playing. Okay, so percentage of visitation assisted with their children's and observing as to how they are applying what they are learning in their parenting classes and interviewing from the discussions that they have learned from the classes. The National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System will provide a year-end information on every child placed in placement care in the United States and will gather the number of those who have been reunified and are back in the system again. Um, that will give us an independent variables as numbers and times in placement, their age, sex, race, numbers, uh, visits, caseworkers completed, and services that have been planned upon closing the case number of maltreatments, foster care payments, all of the information that is required to be able to complete a full research analysis. Okay. The implications of practice, reunification is one of the most persistent uh, uh, challenges in child welfare. This research is important because it addresses the most persistent challenges, which is how to avoid the reinvolvement with child protective services following reunification back into the home from out of the home care is a concern that impacts the target population of children, families, and the child protective system. Exiting and re-entering out of the home care is a disruption to permanence and has a negative, long-lasting effect in children. There are various characteristics in children that might be indicators of re-entry into the foster care system. Age, race, gender, social, economic status play a risk factor for re-entry. Some of the caregivers and family characteristics are also indicators of predictors of returning to foster care after reunification, lower parenting skills, substance misuse by the parents or the caregivers, the parents who had a higher level of unstable mental health issues, and criminal records are also at the higher risk of the spectrum. Poverty, especially those parents that are eligible to Title 4E, are more likely to re-enter versus those parents that are not eligible for those children with siblings in foster care had higher chances to re-enter in on the positive note, cases that have closed in foster care and participate in post reunification service that prevent reentry and have one caseworker visit after reunification, the chances decrease reentry. So this research will be an opportunity to develop policies. This research will also have policies as it works in collaboration with many agencies that benefit the family as a whole. There is also federal funding that comes to child welfare services, and they are authorized in Title 4E and 4B and Title 19 to the Social Security Act. Throughout the Title 4E funding, approximately 70% of California foster care children in out of home care are eligible for and to receive the Title 4E funding. The impacts of culture diversity and oppression. So age is one of the challenges that is associated with the reentry back into the system. Children who are infants and toddlers are at a higher risk compared to children who are older. Race has been examined, and the studies have shown that Black children are more likely to re-enter into foster care, comparing them with the white children. The odds of re-entering the foster care system is a 1.2 times higher for Black children to enter within the first year. Gender has not been fully analyzed to be a clear risk, but some studies have shown that girls are slightly higher in risk of entering than boys, re-entry than boys. Children with physical and behavioral needs are shown to be more likely to re-enter foster care after reunification. But the process um, of being in the child welfare system does not have any biases. The main reason is to be able to make sure that that child is not at risk or at harm. That is the ultimate goal of the department, and that the risk mitigates as well, and the harm mitigates. Um, so with that said, we are going to go through the ethical considerations um, that for the National Association of Social Workers, the NASW holds us at a high standard in being able to advocate and being able to provide service um, and many other values to the communities that we work with. The ones that I found was service, so which is to prioritize the well-being and the needs of the children and their families, dignity and worth of the person, recognizing, respecting the dignity of autonomy and the experiences of the children and parents, not because they are facing this area in their life means that they did something bad and that they don't deserve the respect. There is one of the hardest things is for myself is the perpetrators of sexual abuse. It is very hard to understand that concept and but it is our duty to be unbiased and help out regardless of what our feelings may be. We need to put those aside because these are children that have gone through this but that whom also love their parents and who who want to be back home. um So recognizing, respecting, and the dignity of the children and parents is essential. Confidentiality, protecting and respecting the privacy and confidentiality of the children and their family. Also, it's something that we need to keep to ourselves and to whomever has business in that case, but only through our services and collaborations, not to other parties. Competence, ensuring that social workers are trained and informed about trauma-informed care to provide knowledge to the children and their families, being able to um, give encouragement, um, knowledge on the things that are needed and how to process social justice, advocating for change and addressing inequalities that may occur. Sometimes we go through things as social workers that we do not think are fair, that and they're part of policy, and our responsibility is to advocate for change. Um, and address those concerns with our supervisors. Um, the recommendation are okay. The recommendation is collaboration with other services that provide services such as substance use, counselors, parenting classes, legal advice, educating families, the risks of child welfare, recidivism, provide trauma-informed care practices, strengthening the child welfare policies, and continued advocating for legislation changes. Provide resources to involve the children in the risks of returning to foster care. At times, we tend to blame it on the parents. Oh, but it's also the children. The teenage kids can have can be stressful at times. And getting them involved and providing services for them, it will also be beneficial. Family therapy, group therapies, individual therapy will help out during the process of reintegrating back into their family and helping them out at the personal level, but also and the keeping that nuclear family together as well. Um, let's see. The recommendation is that the research will help agencies to tailor intervention services to best support and services that can be used to improve in seeking guidance to get professional help for mental health if the parents are having issues with receiving care, mental health, substance use disorder services, and is another service that parents can be referred to if they have challenges with the use of substances, refining post reunification services to best support families. Also, community partners play a very big role. Um, that can help through the collaboration process. One of the things that we have in our county is parent partners. Parent partners help out our parents that are going through the process of reunifying, and these parent partners have already gone through um, these this journey. So they are a good resource for parents to be able to reunify with their children. CASA, these are also advocates that they advocate for the children while they are in placement, and it is a great opportunity of getting getting people with positive uh, communities with positive people that will help them through the process. And it might not just be for the time of the reunification. It could be long-lasting relationships that will help out through the years. Um, Advocate for support, law enforcement, schools, family resources centers, and community-based organizations, temporary housing and shelter services. At times, physicians and hospitals can assist with medication to help with substance abuse and stay overall healthy for themselves and their children. Provide trauma-informed care practices, provide mental health services to the perpetrators. And think I covered it all. Um, these are the references that I have used through the process of this assignment. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.